It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Magical day to all. Welcome to Divas That Care Network. I am Joyce Manning, and I will be your host for this magical, robust lifestyle show. I would like to thank each one of our listeners that are listening on the numerous different platforms. I am so very grateful and thankful for each and every one of you. And as I said, you are in for one magical show today, as I have with me one of my amazing returning divas, Ann Klossing. And her and I are going to chat about showing up. Oh, wow. Will this be filled with magic? And with that, Ann, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners today?
Yes, I'd love to. My name is Ann Klossing, and I am a channeler. I'm an author in a few co-authored books, and one of those was exciting. That was Women Who Shine. We made #1 international bestseller. That was back in, time escapes me now. It was either 21 or 22. I can't remember when we released it. It always takes time in the making. I think I signed up in 21 and maybe it came out in 22. But I am a spiritual guide and mentor, and I love what I do, and I'm just getting involved and starting my business. And boy, you want to challenge your visibility and vulnerability and all that good stuff. Just start your own business.
Isn't that the truth? And you have to have the faith and believe that it's going to work. And the angels and spirits and universe, God, however you want to put it, are going to guide you because they started you on this path and they won't leave you now. So, oh, yeah, that
They
is
don't leave
wonderful.
you alone either.
No, they
They
don't.
make sure you're doing pretty good.
Uh-huh. They definitely do. They make sure you are always showing up. Oh,
And they remind you when you don't, too.
uh-huh. So, how would you like to share with our listeners on experiences on your spiritual guidance of showing up?
Showing up can mean many, many things. And Joyce and I were talking just a little bit before we jumped on about, showing up doesn't mean that you have to be this person that wants to be, this grand leader, or, that you're going to be out in public display and you want to be a movie star or a country singer or whatever it is for you. And that's all good. You can do that. But showing up is just asking yourself when you wake in the morning, how am I showing up today? Who am I being today? And it is your emotional state of being is how you're showing up. So are you waking up in victim mode? Are you waking up in joy and eager to get about your day? How are you showing up? How are you being visible? And I am guilty myself. I was in a government job for a long, long time. And my boss always referred to it as, oh, you're a government mule, because you pulled the load and you never really had a break. It was always planning by crisis and one program after the other. And you begin to feel, burdened and beaten down because of the inundation with these programs as they come through. We would get one done and then start the next one. And it's taking the moment to breathe and remind yourself who you really are. You're not your job. You're not even the person that you look at in the mirror in the morning. And we forget that. We become attached to the person in the mirror. And we can be that victim. I was for a lot of years, many, many years, decades. I played victim. And I had my wake up call and I didn't want to be that person anymore. So who are you showing up as? And it's a simple question. Who am I today? Who am I being today? And if you wake up and you're still mad or angry or depressed from the day before, know that it's a brand new day and you have the power to change that. And it takes practice, a lot of practice, daily practice. And I can tell you, when you set aside your daily practices of self-care, it's very easy to go back into the old patterns. Guilty. I am guilty. And then reminding yourself to get back on the daily practices of really loving yourself. Stepping forward into that inner being. And it's really interesting. I want everyone to know that you're a channeler. And you channel, whether you realize it or not, and you channel through your state of being. So you can channel the inner critic and believe that in your mind, or you can channel your inner being and change that viewpoint into one of unconditioned. When we stop judging ourselves, we become aware of what we truly are showing up as. And admitting it, there's no right or wrong. If you're angry, you're angry. And our emotions are meant to be felt. They're guideposts, they're guide markers. So it's like driving along the highway knowing that you're going to take an exit. So if your exit is anger, know that you can get off that exit and you can be angry. But how long are you going to stay at that wayside of anger? And once we decide to get back on our path again and down the road, we might see blame. We might see another not so friendly one, but believe it or not, there's differences between despair and anger. Anger is about 8 steps or 8 miles down the road from despair. So I like to think of it as a stairway. So you can be on the bottom rung of despair and powerlessness, or you can start to climb that ladder to joy, knowledge, appreciation, freedom, wisdom. And when we practice our gratitudes and our appreciations and deeply mean them, that's when you're able to step up to another rung on that emotional, I call it the stairway to joy. And I can't even claim that because I was hung up as I was writing my book. I attended a mastermind with Jack Canfield and Patty Aubrey, and then their guest, James Malinchak. And we each had 15 minutes with these mentors, 15 to 20 minutes. And Jack was helping me with my book. And it's like, the staircase to joy, stairwell to, happiness. And he just thought a minute and he's like, stairway to joy. And I'm like, that's it. Stairway to joy. So place yourself on that stairwell. And even though you may be sitting and you may be visible as a depressed person, you're not visibly happy, know that you can take respite and appreciation. That you can climb the steps, and at the top of those steps is this golden chair with your name on it. This is the most comfortable chair that you've ever sat in. And you sit up there for 5 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. Set a timer in that golden chair for 1 minute and look around your room and just find something to appreciate. Find one thing that you appreciate. And then search for the next and search for the next. And then you will come back down that staircase, but you're going to feel a little bit lighter. And you come up to the next step. And then when you catch yourself being visible in that particular emotion, then you go back to your golden chair of respite, one with your name on it, and spend 30 seconds and a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. So for me, my healing came and my visibility changed towards how people saw me when I practiced journaling in the morning. And I would do a segment intention. And that is a practice out of Esther and Jerry Hicks' books, Ask and It Is Given. And segment intending is fun. I just did it the other day, and one of them was, I would love to see a rainbow today. And as soon as I got done with all my segment intendings, my screen blackens on my computer, and then I got to click a button. And when my screensaver came back on, it rotated to a picture of where the sunlight was coming through, and each ray of the sun had a fractile of rainbow in it. And I was like, check.
Yeah.
And then I continued to see images with rainbows in them the rest of the day yesterday. So segment intention is fun. But where I used it was, I worked with people that I did not enjoy working with. They were not the most inspiring individuals to work with as leaders. And they were the type of leaders that would pick things out instead of praising you. They would enjoy tearing you apart. Mm-hmm. That's a tough environment to work in, and it's a tough environment to stay positive in. But as I did these practices, I would journal in the morning. And then on my way to work, I would do a rampage of appreciation, which is another Esther and Jerry Hicks practice. And that empowered me. It changed me. When I had someone cut me off, and I realized I live in a rural area, so I don't have a lot of traffic, but I did have a town that I had to travel through, small town, but it never failed. If I went a certain way to work, I would get beside the same pokey person. But instead of getting frustrated at the pokey person in front of me, I started thanking them for allowing me more time to get to work, more time to get to enjoy this beautiful sunrise, more time to see the beautiful leaves on the trees. And I would just appreciate nature. Mm-hmm. And then bless that person because they drove slower than me and allowed me to slow down and take in that visibility of that beautiful countryside in Southwest Wisconsin. I began shifting the way I looked at people. And this one supervisor, who was not my supervisor, came down on me really hard. And it was an assumption on his part. And I pointed that assumption out calmly. The old Anne would have probably, I really was like, oh, how do I want to say? 5 seconds away from telling him to go where to go. And not in a really nice way. And instead, I just gave him the facts. Where do you suppose that load is going? Well, I don't know. Well, it's not full. And I said, why do you suppose it's not full? And he just kept hammering on me. And I said, well, Mr. So-and-so, it's not full because it's going to the warehouse that you moved all my product to, so it can get full. And he just shrunk. It's like he totally forgot that all of my inventory was in that town 10 minutes away. And that straight truck had a third of a load on it because it wasn't full, because it had to go to the other warehouse to get full. So that particular individual, I was hot. I was hot after it happened, but I kept my cool with him. And I think I went back to the other warehouse and I just screamed. I was so mad at him. But then the next day I just came in and I looked at him, and it was like, find one thing that you can appreciate about him. Mm-hmm. And he had this really fancy pen tucked in his pocket. And that's what I was appreciative about. Boy, that pen must be really nice. It's nice he's got a nice pen. And then the next day, oh, I really like his shirt today. And I just kept changing. And then people would come up to me. And it's one of those things when you read in a book, it's like your attitude will change and people will notice. And it was true. And when it started to happen, I'm like, my goodness, that Hicks team, they're onto something here. And I had my coworkers noticing that I was holding my head up when I walked across the plant, that I was smiling when I walked across the plant. They wanted to know what I was doing different. I changed the way I felt inside. I changed the way I looked at my environment. And I knew that I was not that environment. And in time, I knew it was time to leave that environment. So I took that job. It was not a happy job. I didn't enjoy it. I hated it. But it was the gift that I needed to see, to know that I was more than that job and that there was a calling. I didn't know what it was at that time, but I was becoming intuitive. I was doing the automatic writing, and I was no longer fitting in at this full service agricultural center that was sucking the soul out of me because I checked it at the door. It's who are you showing up as? Who are you showing up when you go into that place of work? Who are you showing up when you come home to your family? Are you grouchy because you're dragging a job that you hate? Or can you show up as the loving mother, as the loving father, as the loving sibling? Who are you showing up as today? And know that you have a choice. You have a choice to feel differently. Words are words, and words can hurt us. And the only time words hurt us is when we put meaning behind them. If we realize that the words that were just thrown at us is that person's junk and that it's their mood, we do not have to accept it. You deflect it. And you deflect it by choosing not to get upset over it. Oh boy, they must be having a really bad day today. Because you never know what's going on in that person's life. And that supervisor that I talked about was shortly after that, we found out that he was getting a divorce. So it took a kind of, I'll call it a crappy management tool, and it amplified it. It just made it worse. So he was taking his anger out on me. So I was glad that I didn't blow up at him. I really, really wanted to let him have it, but I didn't. I didn't. And I had witnessed to that too. They were like, I can't believe he just did that to you. He was so out of line. And I can't believe you kept your cool. I said, wasn't worth my energy. And it wasn't. And did I get off at the anger exit? Yes, I did. I went back to the warehouse and I got rid of it. I did get off that exit. Called him every name in the book, but not to his face.
And what a difference you said that made to him. And that's so true. Because if you'd came off on him with the same fire, same temperament that he had, it would have just escalated, is how I see it. And you stayed the calm person, though inside you wanted to really tell him what you thought.
Rip him.
Yeah. But what a difference it made in that situation to just show him the facts. And
Right.
he was like, oh, yeah, really? So, yeah, it turned.
And even though I never got an apology from him,
Yeah, no,
I felt good because I was that bigger person, so to speak.
right.
Not in an ego way, more of a rock solid way of just being calm.
Because I always think of it, it always comes back to what my dad always told me. He said, make sure that you don't fall into the same shoes that they're in. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how true that is. Just like with that situation, you could have fallen into the temperament just like what he was showing to you. And then I always think, Dad always said, not be better, but just react in a better way than how they have treated you.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that was my mother's voice too.
Yeah. Yep. It's an angel voice that goes over in my mind so many times where I have to let the old saying, bite your tongue, and just kind of stop and count to 3 and think what I should respond with. It's almost like kind of respond from my heart than respond what my ego wants to tell them. It's how I've seen it too. And
it's that showing up.
Yeah.
And showing up doesn't mean that you're on Facebook or, some other form of social media pronouncing to the world.
No.
It's just showing up for you in your own health.
Yeah. are you showing up for yourself on how you really want to come across to people? Is how I see it a lot of times. And are you showing up from your heart space, or are you showing up from your ego mind space? And
Yes.
when you said that about really loving yourself, I thought, yeah, that's coming from the heart. You have to love yourself first. I feel in a lot of ways to be able to show up from your heart. Because if you're upset with yourself, it kind of portrays out in other ways too.
Yes. And our heart is central.
Mm-hmm.
It is a unique, you can talk about the energy and the chakras, but the physical heart has memory,
Yeah.
as does every cell in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another discussion, but
That's another whole topic for another
that's
day.
another whole topic, but it is amazing in moving, because I thought from the mind all the time. And now it's going, oh yeah, you're being the personality again. And that's what we're here for. I'm not deflating or minimizing, making it minimal, our personality. But when we become impersonal and look through the eyes of source, and I always say creator energy because I never know who my audience is.
Right.
So for me, I like to say creator, source, higher self, universe. And I do like to use God. That's what I was raised with, but that's not talking about religion. That is setting religion and dogma and all that aside. It is the source and the power that breathes you, is what I talk about. So the impersonal side of us is that inner being. That is your soul. And our soul is directly a chip off the old block. It is energy directly from source.
Yes.
And source knows how many hairs you have on your body. Source knows all your lineage. Source knows all about you. Source knows your plan. Source knows your next step. But when we're running around playing the personality, that's when we get caught up in the dramas. We get caught up in ourselves. And it's bringing it back to center, into that heart space. That is when you hear the subtle kindness, non-judgmental voice through meditation, or whether you're sitting on a horse, out in the range, sitting in the sunlight, in the middle of a meadow, whatever it is for you that allows that connection and that quiet solitude where you hear beyond the chatterbox in your mind. And that's cool when it happens.
Yes. Yes. It's amazing when it's magical is how I say. It's just magical when that happens, when you can, because your mind to me is always chattering, and it's constant. And it's like when you can start to listen to that small little voice inside, I call it my heart, and call it from source, from the angels, from the guides, however you want to call it. When you can start to listen to that over the busy chatter in your mind, it's a magical, magical way to live.
Yes, very much so. And I'm human. I mean, and we're here having the human experience. But when that alarm clock goes off in the morning, and instead of shifting into oh, I got to do this today, I got all these things, instead of getting into busy mode, check in. How did I show up when I woke up this morning? How am I? And then gratitude right away. That is one of Louise Hay's practices, was don't let your feet hit the floor until you've stretched your body. You've grabbed onto I love to cover myself in blankies up to my chin. Can't stand to have my head covered, but up to the chin, and I'm warm in my little cocoon. And then I'm loving my blanket and my pillow and my big butted dog that's got his butt next to me. It's the way it was this morning. It was a little tight there. I don't let him sleep in the bed on the farm that I share with my partner. But I do cheat when I'm at my place. He snuggled in pretty tight last night. So he's a pit bull mix and he's just got a big butt. So I appreciate my big butted dog and my teeny tiny terrier. And before my feet hit the floor, just, boy, I get to do this day to day.
Oh, that sounds so this morning. And a lot of mornings, my Minka girl, my little Minka red healer girl will come wake me up by licking me in the face. And I was like, oh, thank you, Minka. There's no better way to wake up than kisses from you. And I'm like, oh, I just love it. And so it's like, rather than hollering at her for doing it, be thankful that she's excited to see you in the morning, is how I feel. And so, yeah, it's all about how you show up, and being gratitude changes attitude. There is just that saying has stuck with me so much because it's so true. Even if I start to get frustrated, I start to think, I stop myself and go, okay, what can I be grateful in this situation rather than finding fault at it? And it's like the
Right.
whole situation starts to turn around when you start to find the gratitude in it. So yeah, it's amazing what gratitude can do for you.
Yeah. And if you can think of it as a circle, and if you had a sheet of paper and you drew a great big circle on it and tried to make it as freehanding it for me, I can try and make it perfect, but it's not. And draw that circle. And then in the very center of that, put the dot. It's coming out. We go outside that teeny tiny dot and we go playing around and we forget to come back to center.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your point of origin. So the outer rim is a creator. You can't, it's impossible to get away from that rim because you're in the center.
Yeah.
You can't go beyond it because the creator expands beyond that. You're always in the container of the creator.
Mm-hmm.
So we're put here in the center of this circle. And then you cut that circle in half for the east and the west. So you've got a north half and a south half. The top half is that masculine energy. The lower half is the feminine energy. And you're sitting in the middle, being held and supported by the Divine Mother and being umbrellaed, protected by the Divine Father. Now you run that one more time. Now we've got 4 pieces. So we're going to cut that into quarters from our north point to our southern point. Now we've got life quadrants. And what happens, and what happened to me, was once I went into the birth quadrant, things happened to me as a young child. And if you look at the circle, and sometime we'll have to, well, of course, this one isn't visual. So you've got your 4 pieces of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a round circle. And in each quadrant, if you would go from, if you're going to look at this on like a clockwise, so if you went from noon to 3, you're going to draw a line from noon to 3 o'clock straight across. That's going to leave a segment of that pie. It's going to be like this weird shape. And you're going to see this perfect triangle. When you're in that perfect triangle, you are connected to your guardian angel. You are connected to the creator, and you are connected to the soul. There's nothing stronger and more stable than a triangle. You can flip it on any side and it's still going to be stable. That's called change. But what happens when we have experiences, we start to dabble in that odd shape, which is fear. And that fear emotion is there to protect us, to keep you from sticking your hand on the hot stove, to keep you from walking out in front of traffic. But what happens is when we accumulate our experiences through life, we begin to live more in the fear. And when you do that, that line that you struck becomes closer and closer and closer to center. And that triangle begins to become smaller. The area of fear becomes larger. And then you start to believe it. You start to believe and live your life in that fear. And that's what I did. And coming back to center, that very point, puts you, when you ask, how can I view this differently? I would love to see this through the lens of the creator. I would love to see this through the lens of my soul and sit in contemplation. I would say, put your God goggles on. How would God look at this? how would God view this? What solutions would God come up with? And if you quiet down, or if you hear nothing, and sometimes you hear nothing because you're not ready to hear it yet.
Mhm.
But all of a sudden, maybe you're doing a mundane task, you're doing dishes, or you're driving to work, and all of a sudden this idea comes in, and it's like, oh, that's how I can look at it. It's like, oh, hit yourself on top of the forehead. The solutions are there and they will come to you because you're always heard and the prayers are always answered. Just may not be the way you thought it would come out, but an answer nonetheless. And that's the tough part of being human sometimes is we don't like those answers or we want instant gratification and we're not meant to have it at that moment in time.
Yeah, so true. Oh, Anne, you have left us with so many golden nuggets, and I cannot believe that this show is starting to come to a close already. I'm like, you and it just feels like we started to chat, and all at once the show's almost over. I'm going, where'd it go? So it was magical. I have a whole page of notes that I took for myself that are just, I call them reminders of how we need to be showing up. And I love this topic. So before we do close, a couple things I would love to ask you, will you please return again to Robust Lifestyles to share more golden nuggets on whatever topic that the universe, God, spirits, angels lead us to chat about?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I love it.
It's always my pleasure.
I love it. Oh, awesome. You heard her, audience. She will be returning. And also, would you please share with our listeners the best ways to connect with you?
Yes. My email is ann@annclossing.com. And my website is just my name. It's annclossing.com. And my website is, I always call it's a work in progress. It always will be. But if you're desiring to work with me, you're desiring to connect with your angel, I have an angel reading program it's $47. You get the name, color of your angel, and you get the color of your soul. And those things are important because I'm going to take you through that triad, that triangle meditation. It's sacred geometry that will put you in tune with your angel. And when you know your angel's name, you begin to do this meditation on a regular basis. You will be able to look through those God goggles like I talked about. And it's really cool. And you develop that relationship with your angel. And I have so much fun doing them too. So it's just a joy. But that's one way you can work with me. And I have others as well. So at annclossing.com. And I'm also on Facebook. It's just Ann Clossing, ANNKLOSSING.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Anne. That way our listeners can find you in numerous different ways to connect with you after they listen to this podcast and go, I need to connect with Anne and get more information from her. So with that, I want to wish you magical days until you and I connect again on this Robust Lifestyles show.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to this magical show with our amazing diva, Ann Clossing. Please share this show with your family and friends and check out all the other hosts and their shows on divasthatcare.com. And remember some of the golden nuggets she left with us. Who am I being today? And remember, you do have a choice, and know how much gratitude changes everything. And it is a stairway to joy when you start to climb it, and oh, how magical it is. And with that, I want to wish each of you a magical day. Remember, be kind to all, including your animals, and give your animals a great big extra hug and share all your love with them as they so deserve it. Until we connect again on Robust Lifestyles, stay strong and healthy.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.